Good morning. Happy Tuesday. Welcome to your early morning intuitive guidance. And today we're actually going to be getting warmer, which I am excited about. I think I can probably even get TJ to go out and walk for a little bit without all the contortions that I've been getting lately. So it'll be a good day. So welcome to your early morning intuitive guidance. We are back to our book for Taking the War Out of Our Words, The Art of Powerful Non-Defensive Communication by Sharon Ellison. And we are now moving into the part, my favorite part of conversation, and most people aren't even aware it exists and don't do it. Good morning, Carolyn. Good morning. And welcome to, I'm going to guess it's Cindy. Yep, there we go. Good morning. We're back to Taking the War Out of Our Words, and we're going to start working on the part that's about process questions. So what we've done thus far is content stuff, where we're asking about the topic we are discussing. In this case, we are going to be asking about how the process is going of discussing it. What's going on between the two of us, if it's a two-person discussion or more, but beginning to shift to that level of process off of the content. Good morning. So I'm excited about this because, again, this is my favorite part of conversation, and most people don't even know that it exists, really. So they may be very good at the content stuff, but process stuff is kind of the realm of therapists. So there you have it. So we are on page 119, and let's just take a couple of nice deep breaths to open ourselves up, soften ourselves, set down some of our armor, and be as fully present and fully engaged and fully open as we can be to receiving this new information and seeing how, if at all, it might help us in our conversations. So, process questions, looking behind the scenes. All the types of questions presented thus far have been questions about the content of the topic under discussion. A process question focuses on some reaction either person is having apart from the topic. These reactions might be an attitude, sarcasm, superiority, or emotion, irritation, hurt, that seems beyond the scope of the topic being discussed. So meaning, in that moment, what that particular topic warrants, what's going on is beyond that, most often based on history, either direct history with the person with whom you're having the discussion or previous life history that sets you up to have this discussion run amok, okay? It might involve an unrelated side comment. It might be some behavioral trait such as interrupting frequently. And again, most people aren't even aware they do this stuff because it's coming out of their subconscious mind, that part of ourselves that wants everything to stay safe, whatever safe is. And safe is usually figured out when we're children, and it doesn't work when we get to be adults. A reaction might be triggered by the topic or involve an ongoing dynamic between the respective parties. Ding, 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 ding. For example, when Trina got upset with Jason for getting home late on his night to fix dinner, he felt hurt that she didn't trust him to follow through on his commitment. And she doesn't say this. Good morning, Susan. Glad you're here. She doesn't say this in the book, but I remember this from the story. She's reacting to that feeling of abandonment, not feeling heard, people not keeping their commitments to her, blah, blah, blah. So she's bringing baggage to the issue also. For him, it was this feeling of hurt that accelerated his defensiveness, not just her assumption that he had forgotten. Often, a matter at hand would not become so intense if it didn't prompt other reactions, right? Such as trust issues or hurt feelings. Here's a rule of thumb. This is her rule of thumb. My own rule of thumb is, if the conversation is getting bogged down because either person resists talking cooperatively or senses tension, to switch from questions about content to questions about the process going on between the people involved. Now, there's a couple places in here where she uses the why questions, and I'm going to go back to her previous stuff where she said, rightfully so, in those places, you're probably better off doing the who, what, where, when, how, and save the whys for last. Find a different way to ask the question. Whenever we use that little 3-letter word, WHY, oftentimes it triggers defensiveness because of how we've used language in the past, etc. All right? Questions about involuntary reactions. So now she's going to start articulating some of these little sections. Questions about involuntary reactions, questions about attitude, questions about motivation and intention. We're going to start with the involuntary reactions part. I mentioned previously that automatic facial reactions can sometimes make it hard to ask sincere questions. On the other hand, they can also provide poignant clues for when to switch to a process question, whether we feel the reaction in ourselves or see them in another. So I'll tell you about one from way back in grade school. I think I might have been in 2nd grade. And my teacher was sharing customs from other countries in terms of dating. And I involuntarily made a face because at 7 or 8 years old, I thought boys were icky. And she jumped on me. Well, maybe you don't want to know about this, but other kids do. Something along that lines. And I was just devastated, shocked and devastated. Like, what the heck? It wasn't until many, many, many years later I figured it out. She was single. She wasn't dating. She felt highly charged about this issue. So when a little girl who didn't have anything to do with dating made a face, she jumped on it. It was good I figured that out down the road. Too bad I didn't figure it out earlier because it processed through my filter systems, which is I'm a pain in the ass. I've always been a pain in the ass. Adults get annoyed by me, blah, blah, blah. So I ran it through my childhood filter of I'm a pain in the ass and just had yet one more confirmation that that was the case, which wasn't what it was at all. So I'm sure you can all come up with your instances of this too, right? Suppose you ask your woman friend to go for a run on a cold day. If she moans and grimaces and finally says, "Oh, all right, let's go," can you see how just sticking with content, "Great, let's go run," could set you up for not having a great run? On the other hand, if you shift to process, you might ask, "Why did you grimace when you said okay?" She might respond, "The thought of going out now sounds terrible, but I know it will be good for me." Having answered the question and acknowledging her reaction, she may feel less resistant and become more committed to going and be a whole lot better running partner. I find this happens often when we ask people about their reactions. After acknowledging it, the person's attitude may well shift and become more positive. On the other hand, she might have responded, "I think I was hesitant." Thank you, dog. You're helpful. "I think I was hesitant to go because I'm so tired and I've been fighting a cold." Given that information, she might decide, with your full support, not to risk becoming ill by running and sweating in the cold. Okay? So shifting to the process question moves you further ahead in terms of where are we at, what's happening here, what decisions are we going to make? Okay? So the next little section is called questions about attitude. None of us have attitude, right? We're all just very straight. Good morning, Helen. We are reading part in Taking the War Out of Our Words, the art of powerful non-defensive communication. So right now we're going to do questions about attitude. Many people over 40 still get advice from their parents in a "we know what's best" tone. "Honey, you should put the giblets in the dressing instead of the gravy." Anybody have that this past weekend? "You really should send Jimmy to bed now." We typically react defensively, arguing, perhaps stifling our irritation. Again, our typical knee-jerk response to that kind of thing is usually not a good one. So let's see what we could do with the process questions that would be helpful. In such situations, I think you can ask directly about the person's attitude in a way that maintains respect. For example, "Mom, do you think your way of making gravy is better than mine?" Or, "Dad, do you think I am not being responsible about when I put Jimmy to bed?" Likewise, you can ask a coworker who gives constant advice, Do you believe you know how to do this process better than I do? So you're asking the question. Again, watch the tone. Do you think you can do this better? Is not going to be effective. But if you can take the step back, take a couple of breaths, and then ask, I'm wondering if you think your way is better than mine. See what you get. These questions draw the issue of the person's attitude out into the open where it can be addressed. Hopefully, even if the person says, yes, I think my way is better, they could explain why they think it's better. You then still get to decide, do you want to change your way of doing it? Or you could say, well, thank you for telling me that. I'm going to stick with what I do. That's fine. Move it forward. These questions draw the issue of the person's attitude out into the open where it can be addressed. We can ask about any reaction: submissiveness, pessimism, skepticism, hostility. Although most people could list a dozen of attitudes that drive them crazy, usually they do not ask direct questions of the person exhibiting them. So, again, it takes practice, time, effort, awareness, practice to shift our gears from that automatic response we have, there she goes again, to asking questions about it, being curious about it. And the payoff oftentimes is things will shift between the two of you such that pattern may drop away. When we don't openly ask about a person's attitude, it's as though we are fighting ghosts whose strong invisible presence can affect our whole experience. Perhaps you're talking about vacation plans and your partner keeps making comments such as, well, we may not get to go if your mom gets sick again. Florida might be kind of expensive. Sarah is getting married next year, so maybe we want to just stay home and save the money. Instead of responding to these statements and trying to continue your conversation, and that's often that we default to blowing it off. We're still having our reaction. That reaction's still going to poison the conversation. The other person hasn't been called out on their reaction. We try to keep going and it doesn't work. Shift to the process questions. I think it is much more effective to ask a question such as, are you feeling pessimistic about taking a vacation? We can also ask another person for an interpretation of our attitude. Do you think I sounded judgmental when I told you my opinion? Or do you think I reacted defensively when you told me you were too tired to go to a movie? By asking, then be prepared for them saying, well, yes, you came off as really snarky. Then meet it where it's at, okay? I'm sorry, that wasn't my intention. I guess I am tired and I probably don't want to go to a movie. I could see how you could perceive that as snarky. That wasn't my intention. Sorry about that. Let's take another whack at this. So you're talking about the content or the process. You're talking about what's happening between the two of you. You're not talking about what you're discussing. Okay, so those are the two little sections I wanted to read for today. So questions about involuntary reactions and questions about attitude. And notice that it's questions about attitude. It's not comments, judgments about attitude. I don't like your snarky attitude. That's not going to get you too far. But if you say, I notice there's a tone when you responded to that. Are you really not wanting to go? Some kind of a description of what you're seeing, hearing, perceiving, and then your question about that part of the process. Where are we going to go from here given what I'm seeing? And sometimes people will deny it. Nope, I'm not snarky. Let's just go. You can decide, okay, well then we're just going. Or you could say, I'm a little uncomfortable going because I sense this isn't going to go very well. See what happens. Sometimes, even if people stubbornly persist in saying, nope, nothing's wrong, let's just go, let's just do this, you having pointed it out now sets a tone for the future. So they may be less likely to give those reactions because they know you're going to talk about it. They know you're going to bring it up. I noticed you're frowning. Tell me what that's about. it takes practice. Again, this all takes practice because it's not what we're used to doing. We are used to letting people off the hook on their responses, pretending we don't see it, la 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 la, and just proceeding, which again doesn't usually go very well. Most often we don't want to shift to the process questions because we're afraid we're going to spark a blow up. The blow up's already simmering there anyway, isn't it? So it's kind of like, let's poke the bubble, blow this thing up, and move on. You being able to stay in the descriptions we've had before, in that curious spot, in an innocent spot, in a observer spot, continues to allow the process to simmer down. It's very hard for one person to pick a fight if the other person won't take the bait. Just keep a reasonable tone. Just keep moving things forward. And actually ended up doing this with someone yesterday around something that happened on a Christmas Day. And when I said it seemed to me like you just wanted to get out of here, she could go with that. Yes, I just wanted to get out of there. I was exhausted. There was too much noise. I was constantly having to run interference, blah, blah, blah. So then it could be out in the open and spoken instead of that quiet thing where, oh, someone's having a hard time. Now we got to tiptoe around. Don't tiptoe. Bring it out into the open, okay? And I know that sounds scary, but take a whack at it and see what happens. You may find that it goes far better than you think it's going to go, all right? So that's our little section for today. Let's see. Yep, perceiving the tone more than the words. And if you ask about they don't want to admit it, absolutely, that is fine. But the mere fact that you bring the tone out into the open shines the light on it so that in the future, they're probably going to think twice about, oh yeah, I put that tone out there and she called me out on it. So I'm gonna edit my tone. I'm gonna shift my gears. I'm gonna do something different. Also, by having put that out there in the conversation, you are free to make choices. So it could be, okay, so I'm perceiving that you're upset about this conversation. You're telling me you're not. I'm still picking up that vibe. So I'm going to call a halt to the conversation. Let's give it a while and we'll pick it up again later. And you're free to walk away. You're free to walk away. You can also at that point ask for permission to say something you need to say. I sense that you're feeling defensive about us having this conversation. Can I just say one thing and then I'm going to let it drop? You'll probably get the begrudging yes, or you might get the no, I don't want to hear it. Okay, that's fine. I still feel like it's important to have my opinion out on the table here. So when you're ready and you want to hear what I have to say, come and find me. Will they come and find you? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. But at least you've done what you can to move the conversation out of that defensive, reactive place and into a more productive place. All right? Sometimes that's the best you can do. And then you walk away, pat yourself on the back and go, yay me. I didn't rise to the bait. I didn't fight with this person. I merely laid the groundwork for hopefully us having a better conversation about it in the future. Cool beans. All right. Have an awesome Tuesday, everybody. I will see you again tomorrow. Remember, you're capable of far more than you think you are, including asking these kinds of process questions. Bye-bye.